Flosstube, and welcome back to Fairy Tales and French Knots. I'm Erin, and this is my channel about cross-stitch, where I talk long enough to make my family wonder what I'm up to, but short enough that you can probably watch this on your lunch break. Today is Sunday, May 18th of 2025, and this is episode 36 of my little adventure online. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back, and if you're new, welcome. I hope you find something you like. I tend to stitch all kinds of things, and that's exactly what I've been doing for these past 2 weeks, is stitching all kinds of things and finishing very little and actually making very little progress for all the stitching I've been doing. Don't you hate when that happens? So what have I been working on? Let's start there. I started working on my whip goes for May, and the calls for this month for me were Asian Shadow Quilts by Ursula Michael and Bluebell from Mirabilia or Nor Corbett. And I've made a bit of progress on both. Most importantly, to me, I made a project bag for the Shadow Quilt project. This was the fabric that I rescued from Joann's going out of business sale. And I made my own little project bag. It's not perfect. The lining is this gray fabric. It's bunchy in spots. It's not perfect, but who is really? So my progress on this piece is not huge, but here's what I've got. I did some more on the kimono, and I finished some of this quilt here on this side, and a little bit of the green bamboo that grows up through the kimono. So basically working in that area of the project. This is on 40 count, and there are a lot of color changes. That little kimono has, I think, 3 or 4 shades of red and red-orange in it. So I love the effect, but I also hate the work that goes into creating the effect. And I know that about myself, and yet I continue to pick those projects. You'd think I'd learn, but no. So yeah, that progress has happened there. I was also working on Bluebell, and I'm not sure when I showed this last, but here's where it is tonight, because I was actually working on it a bit this afternoon. So there's Bluebell. And working down here in this part where there are big patches of color. And it's funny because this is a 28 count fabric, and I typically work on higher counts. Stitching on this feels like stitching on, I don't know, a screen door with a log for a needle. It's so funny. And I feel like my stitches don't lay as nicely as they do on 40 count with a single strand. But I've just been working so much on 40 count that it kind of gotten into my brain that way. So yes, like I said, the Shadow Quilt project is on 40 count. This is not. And then in the evenings, I actually have the Forget-Me-Not sampler downstairs. So when my husband and I are watching TV, I'll put in a few stitches on that. And that's on 40 count too. So it's like 40 count everywhere except Bluebell. I take that back. My March Stitch for Pride for March project is on a 28 count as well. And it's on a 28 count with silk. So that's even more like, it feels sloppy to me. And I don't have that with me. I actually left it in my desk drawer at work because I stitch on that on my lunch breaks. And it's funny, I've figured out what I typically have for lunch. If I eat it at a normal time and like there aren't other coworkers who come in and talk to me, why do people do that? Why do people think if I'm sitting in the break room that I want to talk to them? No, I want to eat and stitch. And I don't want to talk about my stitching and tell you what I'm stitching. And no, especially if you don't stitch, because none of my coworkers do. So it becomes a whole explaining about cross stitch and then about my project. Anyway, Sorry for that tangent. Yeah, so I didn't bring that home. All of that to tell you that. So those are my WIPGO progress for this month. The other thing, and there will be more, obviously. The other thing I've gotten obsessed with is the iris freebie from the Blue Flower that uses the Night Garden thread pack from Nashville. I love it. I love the threads. I love the pattern. I love the colors. And I actually have a FFO to show you because I stitched the iris pattern on a 40 count. And I think I showed this in an earlier video. I had an old clock that I'd found at the antique store. And I think I paid about $5 for it because the clock mechanism no longer worked. And as I was looking at it, I saw someone had inside the back door of the clock, which I have right here. I'll show you. So this is the back door, which opens. And on the back of the door, someone wrote, made with pride in the USA, handcrafted by RMS, $4.95. And I did a Google image search of this clock, and it turns out that much like we cross-stitchers have Just Cross Stitch magazine and, you know, every other kind of pattern magazine that we pull patterns from, there actually are magazines for scroll saw enthusiasts. There's a tongue twister for a Sunday night. But yes, this is a pattern, and you can actually buy, if not this pattern, one very similar from a store online that I found. But in the 90s, before the internet and, you know, patterns could be purchased as kind of one-offs, you had a magazine like we have Just Cross Stitch and Cross Stitching Country Crafts and all those other things from the 90s. You had scroll saw pattern magazines, and this one was in there. So what I think is fascinating and kind of cool is that I now have a clock that was handmade from a pattern that I've turned into a way to show off something else that was handmade from a pattern. So that was my little bit of learning for the week, was that there are patterns for your scroll saw if you would like to make nifty clocks. And this is what I did with this one. So here is the Blue Flower iris freebie pattern. I put it into the clock, what do you call that, a bezel, I guess, and I used the plastic cover, so it's completely inside the clock frame. And then I E6000'd it back to the front. So there it is. Obviously I took the battery pack and the clock mechanism off of it. But doesn't it just look perfect there? These little scroll cut flowers here match the irises. And I had a thought as I was working on it. I'm a fan of Mary Oliver's poems. She writes a lot about nature and inspiration. And as I was working on this and putting this together, there's a poem she has called Invitation. And it starts off, "Oh, do you have time to linger for just a little while out of your busy and very important day for the goldfinches that have gathered in a field of thistles for a musical battle to see who can sing the highest note, or the lowest, or the most expressive of mirth, or the most tender? Their strong, blunt beaks drink the air as they strive melodiously, not for your sake, and not for mine, and not for the sake of winning, but for sheer delight and gratitude. Believe us," they say, "it is a serious thing just to be alive on this fresh morning in the broken world. I beg of you, do not walk by without pausing to attend to this rather ridiculous performance. It could mean something. It could mean everything. It could be what Rilke meant when he wrote, You must change your life. Now, I'm not a dramatist. I'm not a poet. I'm not any kind of performer. But I love the idea that you take time from your day to appreciate and relish in what is around you. And to me, this is the embodiment of that. I have taken time away and replaced it with something beautiful and kind of natural. So maybe that's going to become my thing, is taking clocks apart and putting something pretty inside them, because I'd much rather think about pretty things than the passage of time. I feel like there's some nugget of something in there. Or maybe it's just Sunday night and I'm silly. But that's my finished object for the week. The other thing I wanted to show off, because I mentioned it last week and then realized I hadn't actually shown it ever. I did start Cozy Egg Designs Poet's Heart piece, and I showed it last week. I also mentioned that I had finished her Lie Light tombstone piece, and I don't think I ever showed it in a video. So here is my finish of Lie Light. And speaking of poetry, this is the verse from Mark Twain's Daughter's Tombstone. And he did not write it himself. He, in fact, got very angry when people assumed that he had and tried to give him credit for it. So I believe the legend goes that he went back to her tombstone and had the original poet's name inscribed onto the stone. But this is, yes, Lie Light. And I finished this on a little plywood piece from either Michael's or Joann's with some cheap gray varnish, which I do not recommend to anyone ever because it does not dry. I think I got it at one of the dollar something stores, Family Dollar, Dollar General, nothing's actually $1 here, those kind of stores. And I thought it would work in a pinch, and it kind of did, but it did not go on like a true varnish should. And yeah, I guess my advice would be, if you're going to stain a piece of wood, go buy real varnish from the hardware store or Michael's or someplace that has, Minwax or one of those real brands, not some, bargain brand kind of thing. But yes, this came out. I still love the way it came out. It's wonderful. This is, I think this is a Lady Dot chenille in a green shade. And this was stitched on a fabric from those missing stitches. So there's my Lie Light. Not finished this go round, finished a year or two ago, but just wanted to show that off. And then I have a confession. I was going through my stash, and I've been trying to either finish things, discard things, pass along things I'm not going to use. And I found something. I found one of my first real pieces that I got really into about 20 years ago, and I never finished it. That's in addition to Mermaids of the Deep Blue, which I still haven't finished either. But after my husband and I were married was about the time that Dragon Dreams came out with their Dragon Virtues series. And back in the day, I was obsessed with Dragon Dreams. Like, may still have a lot of those patterns by Jennifer Aikman Smith. Loved them. They don't quite speak to me the way they used to. I still think they're kind of cute, though. But I found in a drawer, get this out here, my Dragon Virtues Afghan. Yeah. I finished Trust, Peace, Patience, Compassion, and Joy. And I started this one. I don't know what one this is. But here's the other part of that confession. I started this piece after our wedding. And the idea was we would not have a child until I had finished this lovely baby Afghan with the dragon virtues, and then we would have our fairy tale pregnancy magical wizard baby and everything would be wonderful. I have a 15-year-old and an unfinished Afghan. So, yeah, that plan worked out real well, didn't it? And I was doing this, looks like I was doing this 2/1 on a really open weave Afghan fabric. And I'm pretty sure the plan was to go every other square, and then if I had it counted outright, I was going to have one square left, and that was where I would put the name and birth date of my child. And then I even purchased flannel for the backing because I was so concerned about the back of my stitches. So I figured if I took the Afghan and made it like with a backing, well, then it could be washed and used like a real blanket. And now I'm looking at this going, I am never going to finish this. I don't even like it anymore. But then I feel responsible for it. I don't know what to do. Obviously, because I'm pretty sure this is not the first time I've rediscovered that project. And yet, I've not worked on it. So, if there's anyone out there who really loves dragons and baby Afghans and wants to have a go at that one, let me know. I know I still have the patterns. I didn't buy them. I got them when they were still free. And I think that at some point, Jennifer Aikman Smith released them as like a purchased pattern booklet, or a pattern booklet that you can purchase. So they're out there. I still have the free patterns, which I think I downloaded and printed even before PDFs were a thing. Like I had to print JPEGs, and they're all pixely and weird. Another reason I quit working on them. So yeah, there's my confession for the week. Yeah. Maybe I should just throw it away. I threw away the wedding sampler. You may remember. Yeah, that I hacked up with a razor blade and chucked, and used the frame for spooky things. Don't know what I'm going to do with 2 yards of green speckly flannel, but it would be 2 yards of green speckly flannel minus an Afghan I'm not going to do. We'll see. And, oh, stash. I haven't got a lot of stash. I'm not a big stash buyer. If you're looking for someone to endorse your projects, your products, and, sell things for you, I'm probably not that channel. I wish I could say I was, but I'm not. I did buy a few things. This came earlier this week. I bought all of these from an Etsy shop. And I bought this. This is the one that started the purchase. And then, as we all know, patterns should not travel alone. So I got some friends for it. But this is the one that I really wanted, which is Nimwe's Hedgehog. You see, we have a little hedgehog and a little fairy house on his back. And I think there's a little fairy sitting right here in the front. I just think this is darling. And if you didn't know, the Latin word for hedgehog or things of the hedgehog is arenaceous. Yes, arenaceous means of or pertaining to hedgehogs. So I kind of look at them as my I don't want to say spirit animal because I'm not an indigenous person who has a, you know, spirit animal kind of thing, but still they're my pocket pal, maybe. I don't know. I like hedgehogs. So I got the hedgehog. And then with the hedgehog, I got Ink Circle's Tombstone Monkeys because I've been obsessed with tombstones lately. And I also got, this is kind of Pam from Just Keep Stitching's fault. I got Uncharted Linen from Not Forgotten Farm. The thing is, I've had this on my watch list on Etsy for like a year or two, and I asked Lori, the designer, if she was ever going to release it as a PDF. And she kept saying, oh yes, I'm going to do all my patterns as PDFs in the Etsy shop. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting. But then this one came up in the shop that was selling the hedgehog, and I got a discount, so I bought it. It's got water and, you know, ocean-themed things. I love those kinds of things. I've definitely got more than a few around my house. So, yeah, that's all the stash I have. The other thing I wanted to show off, and I showed this on my Instagram a while back. I love making little boxes and little travel kits. So I know that Annie over at Exo Needle in the Hay Exo has done a whole series of videos and even classes on how to make these little boxes. So I don't want to step on Annie's toes at all. But I love these really little ones like this. And these you can usually pick up. I see them at Michael's a lot in their like impulse purchase, party supply, seasonal little rack of things. And they're actually jewelry boxes. And I like them because they have a zipper, not a latch. And what I always do is, this is where the ring bed is. So I'll take the ring bed out, and I take out the little 4x4 dividers in there. And then I pick some kind of fabric. Now this one I picked, since we're talking about oceans, I picked mermaids and like underwater castles. And the other thing I've done is I've put a piece of metal tape back here, so that if you have a needle minder, one moment, it will stick to the metal tape. So there's that. And if you like Kohanas, they fit in the little spot right here. So this is where your scissors go. You could put some flosses or some thread conditioner, or I don't know, whatever you want. Here, you've got the little pocket is still here. And yes, I did put a doodad on my, put a little turtle on my pocket. Oh, like in here right now, this is my needle threader. So he was in the pocket. Yeah. Ooh, ah. But yeah, put him in there. So there's my version of little travel kit box. And I thought about maybe doing a video of how I put them together, because it's really, really simple. I know, like I said, I know Annie has done some as well. And I just thought, for the little ones especially, maybe somebody would like to see. I don't know. It doesn't take very long, and I could probably put one together. I have another one of these in a different color with some different fabric that I wanted to play with anyway. So maybe I'll do a video and put it in my quickies collection. We'll see. Otherwise, I hope that everyone is having a safe and happy month of May, getting lots of stitching done, and I'll see you next time. Bye.